Hello and welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for being here today for part one in our two-part open house series. So I've been looking forward to gathering with all of you and sharing about flower essences and sharing about trauma and just really diving into this whole realm of plant spirit medicine, specifically today focused around our sexuality and our sexual healing. So how we're going to dive in is, firstly, I'd love, if it's possible, to see your faces. Now, I know some of you are at work or with your children and you can't really get the video to go on, but I'm just putting that out there that I would love to see some faces besides myself. Hello, hi. Hello, hi, yay. Oh, Shawnee and Kim, hi. Yay, faces. Oh my God, this is so much better. Yay. Oh, great. Well, welcome. Hi, Carrie. Oh my gosh, so exciting. So, hi. Emma and Jana and Britt, and wow, some women who I've journeyed with before, and actually Jana's been in the Flower Essence Practitioner Training program, and maybe she'll stay on long enough that she can share some of her thoughts. We'll see. So we're going to start with a grounding to just bring us all here, and then we are going to dive in. So I'm going to talk about something that I could talk about for hours and hours and hours, and I'm going to check the clock every now and then because once I get started with flower essences, sometimes there's no stopping my mouth. So I've put aside, 75 to 90 minutes. So we're going to talk about flower essences and trauma and specific flower essences for sexual healing. And then we're going to open up questions. So I know, this open house series is really for women who are feeling called to join the practitioner training program this year, maybe want to just get a sense of me as a teacher, or maybe just get a sense of some of the content, maybe get a sense of the sisterhood, the caliber of women who come. And I know you have some questions, so I want to make sure that we have time for that as well. So, hi, Britt, you're at work. Yeah, I totally understand. Sometimes that's the beauty of Zoom, is you can be listening and multitasking, but I know you can't show your face live on video. So for all of you who are doing something similar, or just maybe you're driving or you're with your children, we welcome all of you here, and all of the women who will also be listening to the recording who could not be here. So yay, welcome. So let's begin by closing our eyes. And I'm just going to ask you to bring your awareness and your presence to your own body. And feel your breath as it rises, as it flows, as it illuminates and harmonizes throughout your entire being. This pulse that is ancient, weaving into the present, keeping you alive, connected, and able to live a life of resonance to your heart, to your womb space, to your soul. And so just letting your breath invite you deeper into our shared space. And leaving behind anything that doesn't need or want to be here, so that you can be as fully here as possible. This is for you, for your growth, for your remembrance. And feeling the women who are here with you. Though you may not know them, they hear a similar call from Gaia, a similar call from their soul to learn about flower essences, to help others with trauma, and to devote themselves or to dive deeper into their own personal healing journey. And it takes so much courage. And so as you are honored here, we honor all the women who are here live, all those who will listen to the recording. As brave, as committed, it's truly an honor to be here with all of you. And of course, we call forth Gaia and all of nature. We call forth the plants and the trees and all the wisdom that they carry to come into this space, to open our wombs, our hearts, and our minds to something greater, an intelligence that's unseen and all around us in every moment, that fills us as we take a breath in and as we breathe out. We offer that same back to the living beings of nature. We need one another, and we thank you for being with us. Feeling the energies of nature come into the space. And I'd love to invite you just for a moment to call forth an image, a visual of a flower or a tree, letting whatever wants to pop forth to come, bringing that flower or that tree into your awareness. Just letting yourself be with this presence, this energetic and this specific frequency of nature. It may be a tree that you always spend time with. It may be a rose from your grandmother's garden. It may be that tiny little buttercup that you and your son or daughter play with. Just letting that plant appear. And just noticing how you feel in the presence of this nature's frequency. Notice if you relax, if you feel grief, if you feel joy, if you feel a sense of belonging. And just letting the medicine, the gift, the wisdom of that plant grace your own beingness. Letting it fill you up from the inside out. And tracking the sensations. Noticing any tingling, any opening, any softening. Honoring the medicine that's animating within you now. So we invite in all of these sacred plant allies.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that.
As benevolent beings for your healing journey and for all of our healing journeys. And we thank you, guardians, for showing up for us. And with the deepest prayer, we ask that all that we share here together, all that we receive here together, is offered in sacred service from the deep well of our hearts to the upliftment of all beings everywhere, seen and unseen. And so mote it be. Blessed be. So letting your breath just continue to bring you into a more relaxed and titrated place. And whenever you're ready, at your own pace, taking as much time as you need, you're invited to slowly open your eyes, letting a little bit of light in. And coming back into our 3D reality of technology. Hey, yay. Hi, Kira. Hi to those who have joined us here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh my gosh, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 past students of the Flower Essence Practitioner Training Program. Yay, Shona and Jen and Kira and Jana and Kim and Shawnee and Britt are here. They've already registered. So amazing. So any of our alumni who are here at the end that wish to share about the program, you know, it's always nice to hear from students and not just me, because I'm very biased about this program. It is my heart. It is just a deep part of my mission and dharma in this world, and I love this program so much. There's an extraordinary amount that you receive when you fully show up in this program, and it's multidimensional, right? So it's like you're getting an entire system of healing for working with others, which is amazing. And you're also diving deep and deeper into your own healing journey, because you're getting one-on-one sessions and you're learning about all these flowers every week, and the pot of your own emotions are getting stirred up every week, and you're deepening with Gaia. So it's a very well-rounded experience. So I'm assuming that those of you who are here are deciding whether or not you're going to join us for this year. And I know there's lots of parts of the decision-making process, and I honor all of that. From, you know, it's a huge investment of all resources, time, finances, energy, all of it. And I understand that. So one of the focuses throughout the training is going through the different chakras. And that's part of the system and the way that I teach how to work with clients, how to understand trauma, and how to have a starting point and a map for the stages of healing for someone. And so because this is a program for women to become practitioners, we tend to focus on women-centered topics. And the second chakra is massive for us. It's where we store betrayals, abandonment, boundaries crossed, self-worth, low self-confidence, poor boundaries, Anyone here want to work on their boundaries? I mean, pretty much every woman needs to. And it's just our sexuality lies there as well. So the second chakra is a place that we spend a lot of time in the practitioner program. And so, of course, I wanted to talk about sexual health and sexuality because it is something that each of you navigate in your own life in all different ways, right? So we have sexual abuse and trauma, we assault, violations, and we have an epidemic of women's reproductive health or issues that are completely tied into the emotions. And then we just have the daily ways in which we see our sexual expression is challenged, right? So how do we be vulnerable? How do we open to another? How do we really be intimate? How do we allow ourselves to be touched? I mean, the topic of sexual health with flower essences is very vast. And so I'm going to talk a little bit, but I also want to open the conversation to all of you because it's more impactful when I'm speaking directly to specific circumstances in your life, right? It's like, that's what we all want to learn is like, how do I take information and bring it into my own life, right? Because if not, it's just this intangible concept. And I'm most passionate about you embodying this information for your own emotional wholeness, but also because if you do become a practitioner, you will become an extraordinary practitioner because you will have lived this process and embodied the flower essence healing. So as we know, and what the way that I teach is that healing is a journey. It's multi-layered, right? We find one nugget and it's like, oh my gosh, whoa, this is it, right? This is why I am how I am. And then a year later, there's a whole deepening into that and a whole nother layer. So when it comes to sexuality, because it's connected to the second chakra and therefore the first chakra, there's many layers to it. And so you may have an idea in your own self of what you want to change or transform or repair. And flower essences will absolutely help you do that and more, because there's always more pieces to it. So I want to just start with a couple basics. I never like to make any assumptions. So if you don't know what flower essences are, I want to just make sure that that's here. Because sometimes they get confused with essential oils. People say, oh, I really can't wait to learn about the oils and get their smells and their scents. So this is an entirely different form of plant medicine. Flower essences are the spirit, the essence of a plant. And I say flower essences, but I'm kind of talking about nature's essences. It could be a flower, a tree, a gem, an elemental. I mean, you can collect essences of everything. So what we use the word flower essences. And so you collect the spirit, the essence, the energetic, the frequency of that specific plant, and it's ingested. So it has no smell, and you ingest it internally. And what it does is it meets your spirit to spirit. Now, it doesn't happen often that we are met at a spirit level. I could cry right now. So sometimes we have it in deep partnership where you're just, I'm so met at a soul spirit level. Sometimes you have it with a child, even before they're born, or an animal that you've, cared for. It's like, but it's not the most common experience to have that meeting. And so flower essences offer that. They meet you spirit to spirit. And so whatever is not of your spirit, the spirit is the high frequency of who you are. the divine blueprint, the originality of who you are. So meets you spirit to spirit, anything that's not of spirit. So anything that's not of spirit is wound, hurt, pain, pattern, trauma. All of that stuff starts to be released and brought from the subconscious to the conscious, or from the tissues out into the body. So people think of flower essences as subtle, and they are, because they're working at an energetic level, but they're not subtle in the sense that they're kind of airy-fairy and new agey healing modalities. The way that I teach flower essences and the way that I use them and invite you to use them is from a deeply clinically based embodied expression of working with trauma. So anything that's not of spirit starts to come out, and sometimes it's easeful, right? We were talking about boundaries a minute ago, and I can't even tell you how many clients and students who can't make boundaries, and then they start taking motherwort flower essence, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I just told my mom I can't talk to her right now, and it was fine. Or I just told my partner no about something. So sometimes it is subtle, where it's just the pattern changes. And a lot of times it's not subtle. The flower essences invite you into deep places of wound and your own shadow, and it can be incredibly painful. And we live in a world that tells us to avoid pain at all costs, which is why I honored each of you when we first started as being very brave and courageous, because it takes a lot of courage to feel the things that we've been holding in our bodies and that have been blocking us from truly living the full expression of who we are. And so flower essences, why they're so amazing with trauma, is because when we talk about spirit medicine or the spirit of a plant, it's a very high frequency. Trauma is a very low frequency. It's very dense. And so there's a way that the flower essences pull up the frequency of trauma from the body, which is how you then are consciously able to work with it. So they're absolutely extraordinary for every type of everything, right? So I've been practicing for 17 years. I found flower essences when I was 20. I'm going to be 42, and became a practitioner when I was 24. And I've never met an issue they cannot help, which is a pretty extraordinary and profound thing to say about a healing modality. And I've witnessed all kinds of women coming into my space as clients, as students, and the radical ways that flower essences will change your life. So, in the Flower Essence program, you get 3 sessions, and you will be amazed at what you feel when you begin the program and where you're at 5 months later because of those sessions. So when it comes to sexual healing, they're extraordinary for a couple reasons. One is because they are subtle, right? When it comes to exploring our sexuality, there's just so much around it, right? It's like shame, guilt, terrified relationship with it, violation, right? There's so much around this. And so this modality connected to Gaia allows you to feel so safe to do this exploration. And flower essences are working with your soul. So they're only bringing up what you're ready to experience. It's amazing. It's a soul-directed journey. So even though I've had moments of being, down on the ground, sobbing my eyes out with a certain formula. You may have moments like that. I was ready for it. It wasn't comfortable, and I wanted to move through it really fast, but I was ready for it. So I mean, I say this in the practitioner training program. I want you to have those moments where you are down on the ground, crying the deepest tears of pain that you hold. Because what that means is that the flower essences are touching into something. You know, they're touching into something you've been carrying, and we're carrying so much junk and gunk. So when we speak about flower essences for sexuality, we go really slow and we wait for the layers of healing that reveal themselves. So how I work with clients and how I teach in the program, and you can create your own thing or do it exactly like me, is that I work with a client once a month. And so we have like a counseling, coaching session, mentorship session. Based on what they say, I make a formula and they take it for that month. And I love the idea of a full lunation for them to be journeying with those plants. And there is something really powerful about giving you or a client the active participation, right? Because sometimes we go to quote unquote healers, facilitators of healing, and we just say, okay, like take it from me. Right? And sometimes we need that. There's also something really significant about being in the experience with yourself and these essences for a month and seeing what happens as you show up for yourself. So, and then after a month, you or your client comes back to the practitioner and they say, what's happened? And you're just like, whoa, all these things happened. I realized this, I did this, and then you get another formula based on what happened in that past month. So it's gradual, but I will tell you, it's the fast track to healing. I mean, I've done this work for so long. I've had, just so many clients say to me, I've gone to therapy for 10 years and I've got more out of 1 month with a flower essence formula than 10 years. It's just a frequency match and vibration to what you're ready for. So it's really hard for me to give you like result after result after result of what happens because it's really extraordinary. And I still to this day have moments where I'll be on the phone with a client and they're telling me what's happened in a month and my mouth is like dropped to the floor. I'm still in awe of what happens when people use flower essences. So when we're talking about sexual healing, our sexuality impacts every part of our lives, right? If we're not connected or linked to our sexual expression, it's going to impact how we feel about ourselves, our self-worth, our relationship, our non-relationship, just what we believe to be true about ourselves, our creativity, everything. So I want to take some time to just go through some essences, and then I'd like to just open it up. I know it's a very vulnerable conversation to be having when we talk about our sexuality. And I also just want you to know this is an absolutely safe space. And there's something really important about all of us being real about this. With all of the inner work that we do, not just around sexuality, but about anything in our lives, there's a little bit of a hidden component because we don't want to feel different. We want to belong. We think no one else is feeling the things that we're feeling. And I promise you that what you feel, another woman is feeling or has felt. There's just common emotions that we all experience. And if you haven't experienced it, you will experience it, right? So let me pull up my notes because there were a couple specific ones that I wanted to share with you. Okay. Actually, before I go into the specific flower essences, are there any questions about flower essences or how they work with trauma or why they are so important as a modality right now? I kind of want to just open that space before we shift gears completely to specific flower essences, because that's going to invoke other things inside of you. And if you've never been on Zoom, you can press the little microphone in the bottom left corner of your screen, and that'll unmute you, or you can type in the chat box and we can read what your sharing is. So there's no question that's silly or too small or too big, or I'll let you know what we have time for, but I want to make sure that you understand what I've shared already. Okay, great. So we've got women who have been doing your own work. Okay, good. So the essences that I want to share again, so I'm going to start with a few, then I'm going to open it up because there's so many different variations of sexual repair. Can you all hear what's happening outside my window? Is it really loud? I'm looking for my headphones and I can't seem to find them, and I feel like they're about to do a lot of construction work right outside my window. So I'm going to keep going and hopefully it won't interfere. If it really starts to interfere, type in the chat box and let me know. So with flower essences, one of the things that's really important to understand about them is that they're used differently than what we think of the Western medical model, right? So the Western medical model is, I have this, give me medication for this. And for those of you who are in the holistic health world and have done your own work, you know that the holistic model is, okay, what's underneath of this? Why is this happening? And so it's the same with flower essences. And it's important to remember, because especially when we're dealing with things that we're like, oh God, I really want this to change. I'm ready for this thing to change. We always have women in the program saying what flower essence is for this specific thing. And it's just not the way that it works. And it's really hard for me to say that because people just want the answer. But the beautiful part is the inquiry, right? With yourself or with a client, is following the thread of their story to get to, why is this symptom here? Emotional symptom, physical symptom. And if you come to the live call tomorrow at 11, at the same time tomorrow, we'll be talking about coaching skills and mentoring and all these pieces, because they're actually really important when you're doing this work as a flower essence practitioner. So with sexuality, it's not always just, hey, I have no desire to be with my husband right now sexually. It's not just that. It's, how long is this happening? Why? How do you feel around men? How do you feel in your own intimate space? How do you feel about your own self-worth? It's like, oh, I'm getting chills. It's really leading women into an exploration and excavation of the deeper understandings of themselves. Now, all of you are, conscious beings who go, okay, yeah, totally. You will be working with people who have never had anyone ask them these questions. And that's a powerful part of being a practitioner, is not just making the flower essence formulas and, seeing the radical change with that, but it's bearing witness and seeing someone, and having someone be seen is incredibly healing for that person. So when we talk about sexual health or expression or sexuality, it's not just going to be that symptom. So some of the essences, as I was kind of feeling into, okay, there's so many essences I could speak about, what wants to come forward. And so I wanted to start from this place of what could be underneath, right? So sometimes it's as simple as a woman who has had some level of trauma from childhood, and most of the issues that affect us in adulthood are from our childhood. So you can pretty much always count that you'll start in the present moment at the beginning of the session, and by the end they're in utero or just born, and you're finding the gem of what's been happening for them. But so we always go back to childhood. And so let's say there's a woman who just says, I don't feel comfortable being adored or loved by another, right? We think that that should just be normal and easy, but you know what? It's not. We have so many dysfunctional patterns in our bodies, somatically, psychically, of what we've seen about relationship. So in really traditional therapeutic context, a child learns everything about relationship before the age of 2. So just thinking about that, thinking about your life, thinking about what you saw modeled, about relational dynamics, presence, connection. And most of us here, maybe there's one, but most of us here didn't grow up with parents who were processing trauma with us as we were witnessing it. And it just became normal, right? Oh, that's how a woman talks to a man. That's how a man talks to another man. That's how it's just normalized. But as we grow up, we start to feel, especially as we enter adulthood, hey, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is actually healthy. And more than that, I don't know if I want to be functioning from this paradigm. And so this is where we begin our experience. So when we talk about sexuality, one of the essences that I want to share with you is buttercup. And buttercup it's an essence for your self-worth. It's an essence for really being seen and making yourself visible. So for example, if a woman has issues where she's like, I can't be seen, I really want a relationship, I really want partnership, but I'm so uncomfortable if anyone likes me, I can't, whatever her story is. Buttercup could just be a great starting point, right? Instead of just diving into like, what's your wound and what's your trauma, and just starting slow. Wow, let's kind of, tend to this aspect of what is it like for you to be visible? What would it be like to take off the invisibility cloak and stand with safety and respect of yourself to be seen? And that's the thing with flower essences is, as practitioners, we get into this thing of like, well, I just want my clients to have these like epic experiences and I want them to have the results. And the thing is, when you start slow, and let's say, for example, you start with self-worth, sometimes just touching into that place completely changes the trajectory of that person's sexual healing journey. It's like, you may not even need to go into all the nitty-gritty pieces of trauma because that piece has just been calling to be nourished. So buttercup is just amazing. And really in any aspect of sexuality, for us to feel more worthy of love, of intimacy, of relational respect, buttercup is going to be a great ally for all of us. Motherwort is also, I mentioned that earlier. It's an extraordinary, this plant is so spectacular. She's extraordinary for creating, cultivating, maintaining healthy and appropriate boundaries. And I use those words really specifically, healthy and appropriate. So not boundaries that are just like super reactionary and hurtful, but come from a place of self-preservation. Now, what happens for most women who have some sort of challenge within their sexual expression or their sexual flow is that they've had boundaries crossed in the past. They've had people who have taken advantage of them. They've been in the role of pleasing others, right? So pretty much everyone here, it's an epidemic amongst women. We people please. We put our priorities last and we say yes to everyone, even when we don't want to be doing it, because if we say no, it might hurt someone. We will let somebody down. And because women, since the time we can learn how to speak, have been taught that you put everyone's needs before yourself. So when we get to adulthood, we go, oh my God, I have no boundaries. I don't even know what a boundary is. And then when it comes to sexuality, right, saying yes to really healthy partners, saying no to violent, abusive partners, saying yes in boundaries of this is my body and this is what I'm going to allow to happen. It takes a tremendous amount of guardianship in your own self and trust in the knowing that your body is a temple and you need to learn boundaries. And so Motherwort, she's part of the mint family, and she looks like this. If you know any of the plants in the mint family, it looks like almost like her mouth is open. And basically she helps the second chakra open to really pleasurable, healthy experiences. Because that's what sexual expression is about, is allowing the pleasure and then closing to situations that are not safe, that will not ultimately provide the true form of pleasure, and that will compromise your sense of self and safety. So she's extraordinary, extraordinary. I think Motherwort, I use her for every single client. I don't think I've ever not used her. I use her in the first or second session of every client. Okay, so let's see what else I have here. Okay. The other essence I wanted to talk about is fleabane. Fleabane is a teeny tiny flower in the daisy family. And fleabane helps to heal the suppression of the feminine. So part of our sexual dysfunction, distortion, is all the things that we've bought into about who we're supposed to be as feminine sexual beings, right? It's like going into any major city and seeing billboard after billboard of women selling their bodies for products, women who are airbrushed, right? Like all these ways in which there's no way we could ever attain what these magazines are selling us, right? We all know that. But there's also other subtle things, right? There's like a subtle thing that your mom or your dad or a caregiver said to you about your body or your beauty as a child that you may still be carrying into adulthood. And then as a culture, there's the over-culture conditioning that suppresses the power of our sexuality, right? It's so powerful that every sexual story of goddesses, great beings, has been distorted, right? And the greatest one we know, of course, is Mary Magdalene as the prostitute and the whore, who really just was, a queen of her own energetic sexual self. So we're navigating so many parts, things on the surface, things below the surface. Fleabane is amazing for unhooking the suppression of the feminine that's living inside of us. And of course, is coming out through who we are as sexual beings, right? It's like, who am I to wear red lipstick? Who am I to wear that kind of like a see-through shirt? It's like, who are you not to, right? And I say that with a little caveat because we still do live in a world that isn't safe for us. So part of it is in your own self cultivating a sense of safety in yourself. That's all we can do, right? And then that, of course, ultimately ripples out into the world. So fleabane's powerful for places in yourself you feel you're suppressing, around your sexuality. And I think we all do. I think there's probably places in each of us where there's some level of suppression of our power, of our pleasure, of our delight in our own bodies and in others. And then I want to just share with you a couple essences that are maybe more specific in the sense of, really, treating this sexual thing. One is, which ones do I want to talk about? Red hibiscus. So the hibiscus family of essences, we have a whole hibiscus collection in the Gaia's Wisdom Flower Essence line. And hibiscuses generally all work with the second chakra. The red hibiscus specifically works on sexual betrayal and sexual trauma that you're carrying that's impacting your relationship to yourself or to another. It's incredibly what's the word I want to use? It's really good at what it does. So women who have had sexual trauma, assault, and I want to presence this piece of, like, when I say trauma, there's a spectrum, right? The trauma is really, anything that your body has taken in as, unsafe, dangerous, and then imprinted and entrained with your nervous system and your mental system to believe to be true or to understand as that just your default setting. So sometimes women come into this program and go, well, I don't have trauma, like I wasn't raped, right? So we don't need to compare trauma. That's not a good use of our time. What we want to do is validate the trauma that we do have in our bodies. And so there is a spectrum of trauma. So when I speak about sexual trauma, it can be rape, childhood rape from an uncle, women's violations in childhood, as we know, is a horrific epidemic. And as a practitioner of any kind, I would say all of your clients, I usually say 98% of your clients have some sexual trauma. I want to say 100%, but I don't. 98%. And many of them will have trauma that originated with a family member. So this is real. This isn't just like, something you may come across in your life. This is something maybe that you live every day. And this is something that you will absolutely hear as a practitioner. So, I remember being 24 and starting this work and just crying and crying after my sessions with clients because I just had no idea the amount of abuse that was out there. So, what was I talking about? The red hibiscus. So the red hibiscus is really specific for sexual trauma, and it can be anywhere on that spectrum. But it's all about betrayal and boundaries that were crossed. And that just brings me, I'm just kind of tuning into another one of, I wasn't going to talk about it, but the red pine, because red pine is about forgiveness. And there's an aspect, and you cannot rush forgiveness. I am not somebody who actually talks about forgiveness a lot because it needs to come forward on its own accord. But as we talk and go deep into sexual trauma and shame, a lot of times women they're ready to either forgive themselves or to forgive another. And so I wanted to presence that. And that's why I'm saying there's so many layers when we talk about this, right? So the other one I wanted to talk about was red elderberry. So red elderberry is actually a poisonous berry. So you don't ingest it physically, but flower essences you can use if a plant is poisonous because you're just using the frequency. You're not using any of the physical plant. So, and those plants tend to be very powerful and almost shamanic. So the red elderberry is actually for women who have had or hold some sort of grief or loss in your womb space. So this could be the loss of your innocence, right? This could be literally like multiple miscarriages. You know, you keep losing children and it's affecting, you know, how you feel about your body, how you feel towards your partner, how you feel about your sexuality. This could be for women who have had abortions, who still hold on to some layer of grief or trauma or guilt. So red elderberry is a very powerful essence. You actually take it a little bit differently than some of the other essences, and it's more ceremonial, and you take one drop and things really start to be released through the womb energetically. And then you'll probably also see it if you're still cycling. You'll start to notice, especially that next cycle, your cycle may just be a little different, more crampy, heavier, cloddy. Like there's so much we hold in that chalice. And the grief of our own individual life and decisions, and then that of our ancestors, and then that of the collective is really massive. And so red elderberry is a powerful ally to have for all of us who are holding sorrow, deep sorrow. And then the last one I'm going to talk about, just because I'm watching the time and I want to open for some questions, is sticky monkey flower. I love the name of that plant, and I love that plant. It's very sticky. And so it helps with all matters of healings around our sexuality, around intimacy, about opening up, about being touched. But it also has a physicality piece. So it can help if you're not getting aroused, or you're not getting turned on or lubricated enough. It can actually help bring some of the stickiness back into the vaginal fluids. And you know that happens so much for women. It's not spoken about. And so it's a really great healer for both emotional and physical. So I'm going to pause there. I just see there's a couple questions here. So I'd love to just open for questions. I'm going to read some of the questions here on the chat. And then I'd love to hear just some of your thoughts as you're hearing about these flower essences. You know, what's being invoked inside of you? What other questions do you have that are maybe specific to you or to a loved one or to a client? I'm happy to answer those. But let's just kind of, just make this more tangible by bringing it into a shared communication. So I see Erin, is a plant essence like a plant soul, or is it different? And is our essence our soul, or more of a vibration in the soul? I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So I think that the language of spirit is incredibly challenging, which is why I always am very challenged when I market the Flower Essence program and I invite women into this. And it took me probably close to 15 years to have a really solid definition of what flower essences are in a way that I felt people would understand them. So my experience, and again, I'm always going to talk about my experience until you can take it and maybe you really resonate with it, or maybe you take parts of it and make it yours, or you don't resonate with it at all, is that when we talk about essence, when we talk about soul, when we talk about spirit, there's different ways that they can all be defined. But my understanding is that, and again, there really is, for me, when I think of soul, spirit, and essence, there are slight nuances to each of them. But if I was going to say in the moment, there's an overall cohesiveness between them, that they're really like your divine origin blueprint of who you are before incarnation, before wounds, before traumas, before conditionings. It's essence and spirit for me kind of go more hand in hand. Soul feels slightly different. Some people use different words like the deva of the plant, or the energetic or the vibration. A lot of people call flower essences vibrational medicine. They all are very similar. They're very similar. And they're all here to bring you into incarnation. So although we think that we're here, most of us aren't really here. Most of us haven't really chosen to be embodied. We live up here in our upper chakras. We have really good means to escape and check out. So to come into your essence, into your spirit, into your soul's frequency. So that's how I would kind of change it. Essence, spirit, and soul's frequency is to actually incarnate and take up residency in your body. And every one of us needs to do that, especially those of us who are drawn to healing spiritual paths. We're generally people who tend to live a little bit more up in the ethers. And this path is about bringing you into this body and feeling everything. And using that feeling as your pathway to healing. And when I talk about healing, I want to just presence this too, because this is talking about words and, definitions. And to me, healing is very different from health. So health to me is, okay, you get better, you're feeling good, you're good for a little bit, and then you kind of plateau. Healing is something completely different. It's something that's long-term, it's sustainable, and it brings you into that expression of essence, spirit, soul. And that's what flower essences do. And why I call it a healing journey, I don't call it a health journey. It's a healing journey that you're taking on. Okay. Britt says, Buttercup and Motherwort are two of my favorite essences, life-changing. Yeah, they're extraordinary. Britt, I haven't heard much about trauma leading to reckless sexuality and the loss of sacredness around sex. This is something I've dealt with after sexual abuse as a small child and haven't heard much discussion around it. Will this be discussed in the program at all? So this is a great question, right? So you can either have trauma that leads you to be completely disconnected from your body and offering it up over and over and over, or you can have closure and shame and disconnect, right? It's like the nervous system either goes into like fight or flight, and I'm just gonna like keep on running and open to whatever, or frozen, closed, collapsed, right? And that's why when we talk about all these different things with flower essences, it's like the expression what's expressed through each of you is going to be different, right? Like it's so interesting when there's two children who are born in the same family who have had the same circumstances, right? And one goes on to be sexually just open in a really, dishonoring way of herself, and the other completely closes and doesn't let anyone in. So part of that is the way that your own being takes in energy and how that experience imprints into your specific body. So we go through, part of the practitioner training program is, yes, I have lots of things that I want to share with you. And every call, there's questions. So if there are specific things like this question, and no, Britt, you're joining the program, you've already registered, we will talk about this, right? Part of what you're asking is that there's just been that place that I was just talking about where we incarnate when it's safe, right? That's the ideal scenario. There's safety, we incarnate. When there's no safety, we are completely disjointed from our body. So we can give it over to whomever, trying to fill something, or not even trying to fill something, just being, disconnected. So flower essences are the invitation of incarnating and embodying, and part of that's your safety, right? So we'll absolutely go into this, and there's a lot there, right? As you know, I'm sure, but there's a lot there about why, sort of the pathway that gets created for somebody to be really loose around their sexual expression as a way to get love, to be loved, to be seen, to be validated in some way, right? Because that wasn't there. But it's a false sense. Most of us just don't know that as children, as adolescents, because there's no one telling us that. We're just kind of stumbling around trying to figure it out. So thank you for that question, Britt. Carrie, I think ultimately words like soul, spirit, essence are are not quite the adequate ways we have to describe great mysteries that are super difficult to put words to accurately. Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to speak about. When we're talking about essence or spirit, it's like to put a word that's like this big into this, vastness, it's really hard. So Erin, part of your question is going to be really powerful of you exploring that. Like, what does that mean for yourself when you're working with a flower essence? Because it is so hard to put it into language. Thanks, Carrie. Carrie, my questions are more about time commitment. Yeah, practical. Okay, great. How much of a time commitment would I need to reserve for this to truly be present, get the most possible out of the program? Also, I don't think I would be able to come to the retreat as I'm coming to Avalon with you. Woo! If I choose to join the training this year, which is sad, how much would I be missing, and would it be possible to join next year's retreat? Yeah, so practicality, time commitment, thank you for asking this, everyone wants to know, is so how the program's structured is that we have 3 weeks of classes, 1 week of implementation, 3 weeks of classes, 1 week of implementation. So the reason I structured it like that is because I really don't want anyone to get overwhelmed. Once you get overwhelmed, all of your issues start coming up, right? It's like you check out, you start bashing yourself, it's just like, right. So the 3 weeks of each class, they're 90 minutes. So the least you will have is 90 minutes a week. There are 3 additional Q&A calls throughout the program, so maybe those weeks you'll have 2 calls. That implementation week is for you if you've missed a call, if you just want to be spacious, if you want to go out and collect essences. So there are some weeks where you don't have any homework assignments. There's some weeks I just want you to really be present at those calls and really read through the manual. So you get a manual each week. There are some weeks where I'll have you do some writing exercises and practices that might be 20 minutes or 30 minutes. And then, of course, there's weeks where you're going to be making and collecting essences. So those usually don't feel like you're inside and you're working or you're reading. It's probably, I would hope, really fun for all of you. And so there are weeks that you're going to be outside for 2 hours or 30 minutes if an essence is really fast to make. So there will be some of that, and that's why we open registration spring and summer, because you can be outside for those of you in the Northern Americas, and even sometimes for those of you in South America. In the Northern Hemisphere and Southern Hemisphere. So minimum every week, except those implementation weeks, would be an hour and a half. I've had women say that they listen to the recordings many times. So it kind of depends a little bit about how you learn. If you just show up and are truly present for those 90 minutes, you're good. And like I said, there will be some other things. I'd say an hour and a half to 2 hours. Right? But it's because the way the program's structured is it's very gradual. Each week we build on the next week. So like, let's say we learn something week 1, week 2, you go, oh, now I really understand that. Now I got a little bit more. And so it's meant to be like that. As far as the retreat, so usually half or around half-ish of the women who enroll come to the retreat. The program in itself is complete, the online program. Like, it's fully complete. We have women from all over the world join us who cannot come to the retreat. The retreat is amazing. And if you can swing coming to the retreat, it will ground things in a different way. Of course, also meeting the other women in person's really awesome. And, part of this for me is creating a community of women who speak a similar language to you. They're on a similar healing path. They want to geek out with you about, like, oh my gosh, did you just see that flower that was growing above this tree? Oh my God, like, it's so fun. And yes, you can always come to next year's retreat. So we always, like, in fact, I think today we sent out an email to women in the past years who haven't come to the retreats to say, hey, if you want to come, you're more than welcome. And that's always really awesome when we have women from previous years come to a current year's retreat. So that's always available. Is that good? Okay, good. Okay, I don't know who this is from, LGK20. That's a nice undercover flower essence name. Can you tell me about gardenia essence? I was called to make a fleabane, red hibiscus, and gardenia flower essence, but then was too hesitant to take it. So gardenia is kind of, actually, I would say it might be really nice with the fleabane and red hibiscus, probably why you were guided to do it, because the gardenia is going to be really uplifting. Like, it's going to, when you smell a gardenia and you're just like, oh gosh, you're just like lifted to another plane. That's what the essence is going to create with that formula. So, the red hibiscus and the fleabane, that's going to be asking you to do a little bit more processing and deeper inquiry. The gardenia may just be like a really uplifting, emotional essence for you. So I think that it will be lovely. And, the gardenia being white color has the essence of real divinity with it. And, there's, that aspect of our sexual healing is, it's another layer of how do we really be divinely sexual, right? So there's going to be like an upper spiritual aspect to that gardenia as well. Hey, Erin, you sent in your application, but I'm thinking you maybe haven't received it. I have not received it. Thank you for asking. So if you can fill one out and resubmit it, that would be really great. I'm hoping that didn't happen for anyone else. I'm glad you asked. Yes, we usually get back to you. I usually get back to you, within 24 hours after you send it in. So if you've sent an application in and you haven't received word from me, please email me and resend it. Yeah, because Erin, you were on the IG Live the other day, and I was wondering, oh, is she gonna send in her application? And I never got it. Okay, Britt, I have one more question. Also, you can unmute yourselves if you have a question. I'd love to hear some voices. Are the dates for the retreat set? I got excited and booked my flight, but then got a little nervous that the dates might change. No, the dates are set. The retreat is over summer solstice, the summer solstice portal. It's going to be very majestic and very golden, and we are staying at the most beautiful place. I'm actually living there right now in between homes. And so if you've seen any of my IG lives, well, they haven't been working. I guess there was a glitch, but they haven't been saving. But it's epic. It's so beautiful. There's flowers everywhere. There's a saltwater pool. There's a creek and a river. I mean, it's beautiful. So those dates are set. because we have a caterer and a retreat space. So June 20th to the 24th, we'll be doing ritual. You'll be learning more. We'll be doing, lots of great things. Leslie, I'm feeling into this training. Thank you. I need to go now. Blessings. Okay, Leslie, you're welcome. Let me know if you have questions. Okay, so any other questions about flower essences with sexuality? Specifically, for yourself or for others?
Hi, can you hear me? Is my voice coming through? No.
Oh, is somebody talking? Hold on. Oh, can you come back again? My sound was off. Who was it, Carrie? Natasha? Where are you, Natasha? Hold on. Are there two screens here? No, just one, right? Maybe I don't see her here. Oh, Natasha, there you are. I'm gonna unmute you. Wait. Oh.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to say hi. I have my hands full, so I can't type. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm really excited about this. I've been reading Womb Awakening, and this seems very in line with just the womb healing path that I'm on. And I went onto your Instagram just to look up the info again, and then you happen to be doing this right now, so that's why I was late. It was very cool. Is there one flower that you think is the most healing for the womb space, just in general?
Yes. I'm going to put you on mute just because I'm hearing a little feedback, if you don't mind. Okay. So, so we have, after you go through the Flower Essence Practitioner Training, you can join what we call the collective, which is continuing education. We just recently did I think we did 2 parts of flower essences for womb healing. So I would say, if I was to give like a general womb healing clearing, there's probably 2 I would pick. Well, there might be 3 or 7, but I'll give you a few right now. The first one that popped in my head when you asked the question is actually a stone essence, and it's called Omphalos. And it's a stone from Avalon, from the mythic place of Glastonbury. And it's this stone that it's said that the priestesses for thousands of years would bleed upon. And there's this kind of little divot in this stone. And so this stone is full, I feel so emotional right now. The stone is full of the DNA of powerful, magical beings. And when you touch the stone, there's something that happens where you spiral into the great cosmic womb, right? The womb from which we all have come from. And physically the womb in which really is meant to reside within our own physical bodies. And so Omphalos it's not one that I recommend, like I wouldn't just give it to anyone, right? So I see, okay, you're really working on your womb, and a lot of times this happens for women, especially after we have children, because we're having to create a whole new relationship with our bodies and our wombs and our sexualities and intimacies. And, we talk about that. We have a whole section on children and pregnancy. And anyway, Omphalos would be one that I would start with. And really almost like when you use the bottle, when you use the essence, just creating an intention for your womb. And again, similarly to when I was sharing about the red elderberry, just taking one drop and sitting for at least 10 minutes or laying down for 10 minutes, and there will be a healing that actually the stone creates in your body. I don't know, anyone else who sells the Flower Essence besides me and Gaia's Wisdom. Right now, all my essences are in storage. I might be able to get some because I tried to put them like towards the front of our storage. But I would for sure say the Phallus, the red elderberry, again, for just like the immense grief that we hold in our womb. Because if we can clear some of that energetic, it's amazing the spaciousness that opens up for us. Grief it takes up a lot of space, and it impacts our lives, especially from the womb, greatly. And then the last one that I would say is pomegranate. And pomegranate, this essence specifically that I'm talking about, I made in Israel. I collected in Israel last year, and it was made completely with Mary Magdalene. And see, there's something about healing the womb that has to do with, for sure, of course, the relinking of our sexuality, but all of that actually comes from how we enter from maiden into lover, right? So most of us at our first moon blood, there's no ceremony, there's no honoring. Maybe there was, some of you had that, but most of us have a story around how we entered our moon time that's not super empowering. And the thing is, how we enter that time of our lives is actually how we then will ultimately be linked to our sexuality. Does that make sense? Right? So if we enter into the time of our blood with, okay, whatever, just put a tampon in, or, don't tell anyone you got it, or, like whatever it is, that's the frequency that we enter into our sexual selves. So part of healing the womb, again, just like we've talked about with flower essences, is always going back to those first moments. What was the first moment of you stepping into literally the temple of your sexual self with your first moon blood? That sets up entrainment and imprints in your womb that set up how you are now. So pomegranate does many other different things, but it's really powerful of relinking you to your own first blood and to your blood in general. And I don't know if you're bleeding yet or not, but that will also really help the health and vitality and thriving of your womb space. So, this is why I love flower essences, you all. Like, you can never get bored with this modality. And if you love healing and trauma work and deep, like, there's never a place within flower essences where I go, oh, they can't do this. Because nature is infinite. Like the brilliance that's held in nature is so vast, and it can help every little nuanced layer of everything that we're moving through. So that's why it's hard for me to say, like, if you had to pick one essence, because I just know from doing this work for so long on myself and with others, it's not just always, I want to work on my womb. It's like, there's a whole other aspects that are all tied into this piece. So yeah, thanks for asking that. Shawnee, hi. I'm curious what the red tea essence is. Been taking it for 2 weeks now and was curious. So the red tea is, it's like, if you imagine the top of my head's here, right? Because this is the physicality. The red tea reminds you that you're let's see if I can scoot down a little bit. The red tea reminds you that like your aura goes way up, 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 up. Way bigger than you could possibly ever think you are. And the red tea has a little bit of a masculine energy. It's very shamanic. It's kind of like the king, the leader, the chief of like a Hawaiian culture, who is very connected to his body, to his powers, to his gifts, and to serving. So the red tea kind of anchors in a level of your own like medicine person. And we can talk more about it tomorrow too. Natasha, how have you learned what each essence does? Were you taught? Is it intuition, experimentation? So when I was 24, I took a Flower Essence Practitioner Training program. I was telling Carrie the other day, I was in 3 different other trainings at the time, or 2-year herbal medicine training and a 2-year plant spirit medicine training. And I just always felt like all I was learning about plant medicine was treating the symptom. And I just wanted to go deeper. Like I just always want to go deeper. I don't like the surface so much. And so I found flower essences and I thought, okay, I'm taking this training. And I left that training going, my life just changed. The trajectory of my life absolutely just changed. And all I wanted was to drink, eat, sleep flower essences. And so I started using them on myself. And so part of how you learn about essences is seeing how they come alive in your own self. And that's the best way, right? You take an essence and you go, oh my God, I actually feel better about myself, right? It's the best way to learn, is embodied. And then, you know, when you fall in love with flower essences and you love plants, you know, sitting and making, collecting essences is absolutely the best way to learn, right? You have that one-on-one partnership and communication with the plant. The plant says, this is what I'm for. You go, really? I don't know. Am I believing this? I don't know. Okay, yes, I'll believe it. And then you take it and it has that effect. And then the last way, and this is, I teach all of this to you in the practitioner training program as well, is just, you know, when I first became a practitioner, and so this was a long time ago, we didn't really use the internet. I didn't really use Google, and I had little pamphlets from different companies, and I would just study them. You know, I would just study them, and a client would come and they'd say, this is what's happening. And I'd say, okay, I think I'm going to try to use this essence. And they'd take it for a month and they'd come back, and what that essence was for changed in their lives. So it's a little bit of everything. It's your connection with Gaia, your trust that you're hearing things, your embodied experience with the essences, and study. You know, study is important. Our minds like to be part of this as well. Okay, Carrie, you're going to speak. Sharona, let me just answer this one, Carrie, really fast. This may be a strange question, but is there a specific way to store the essences? Are they better kept in a fridge, or does it matter? Great question. So essences are actually kept best in a dark space, out of sunlight. They actually, what's really so cool about them, they actually have their own cooling system. So when you keep them in like a cupboard or something, a cabinet, and you close them, you'll notice that when you open them, they're very cool. It's almost like a cool breeze comes off of them. So you don't keep them in direct sunlight. You don't put them in the fridge. They have their own cooling system, and they're preserved in a little bit of alcohol, and so they stay preserved. I have essences I've had for 20 years. You know, that's the sustainability of essences compared to essential oils, is one flower could last you a lifetime of essences. And we talk about all of this in the practitioner program as well, Sharona. Thank you. Carrie?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm speaking. Okay. My question is about like the actual like ingesting. Why is it important to actually ingest it versus like sitting and doing a journey with the plant or the flower? Like if it's an energetic medicine, why is like the physical delivery important, and how does that work? If that is even something we can understand.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. And I would say it's like, I kind of think it's both, right? So the more I've studied this for myself, the more I've gotten into, oh, okay, I can just, like my son was in the emergency room. I had no essences. Okay, I can call on the spirit of that plant to come in and do its work, right? So absolutely that shamanic aspect, the shamanism runs deep through flower essences. So that shamanic aspect. And even with children, babies, small babies, we actually don't have them ingest essences. We put them on the soles of their feet because they are already at such a high frequency that it doesn't impact them in the same way to have it be delivered orally and internally. For us, so yes, you can explore that for sure. And there is something important about the ingestion piece for a couple of reasons. One is a little bit of the placebo, right? People feel like they're taking something, something's happening to them, right? I remember when I first became a practitioner, and when somebody would leave my office with a formula, it's like, it feels different, right? You're taking something for a whole month. There's an act of ingesting something, knowing something will happen. When you ingest a flower essence, you also, I always tell people, take a minute and breathe when you've taken an essence. Feel it, because you can actually feel, especially the more and more you take it and the more you get attuned to the vibrations, you can feel when you take it internally where that vibration starts to work with your vibration or your traumas. And you can actually start to feel where things begin to shift and move. So it depends on the thing, right? Like you could just hold that bottle of omphalos that I was talking about before for the womb. You could just put it right in your womb. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. And there also is something important as an everyday clinical formula to be taking it, because what happens is our bodies, right, our emotional issues, they're energetic patterns, right? So when you start to ingest a formula, that the frequency of those specific flower essences that are in there actually begins to create a little like schism in the emotional pattern of yourself. And that's a really important thing that begins to happen when you take it internally. That's going to be different if you just do like a one-time connection and call that plant forward, because part of trauma has a pattern, right? Low vibration has a pattern. Wound has a pattern. So when you're taking a flower essence, it's creating a new pattern and releasing the old. So it's kind of both. And you can do things with flower essences, like you can put them in baths. Like you can use clay essence to put in a bath to detox the body. You don't need to actually take it internally. So there's different ways that you can use essences, and I think they're all important and valuable for different intentions or purposes you have. It's a really good question. Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh. So we're at 90 minutes. I'm just going to plug my computer in because it's about to die. And so I want to just see if there's any last questions. So we're having, part 2 of the open house series tomorrow. We're going to be talking, it's going to be different. It's going to be a little bit more heady, and, how to be a flower essence practitioner as a coach and counselor and mentor. And it's going to be heady, but it's also exciting because I know a lot of women are just you're seeking a career that's in service in this way. And I want to help you be a really good practitioner. So that's tomorrow, if you can be there live with us. If not, we'll be sending out the recordings. And our Flower Essence training program begins April 23rd, so actually in 13 days. But registration and enrollment closes April 19th. So if you want to join us, we offer it once a year. I promise you, I don't know what to say. Oh, wait, do we have any of our ladies here left? You want to hear from any of them? I know we're kind of at time, but okay, so Shona or Jana, you are all still here. Let's see if anyone else is still. No, they're not here. So Shona or Jana, if you want to unmute yourselves, I know Shona, you might be at work, but if you want to share anything that you would say, oh, give me a minute, she says, about the program, about, some women enter this program and they're just, actually every woman enters this program saying, I don't know why, but I'm called. And some women have healing practices that they want to add more to their gifts and their skill set. And some women, they don't enter it thinking they want to become a practitioner. And by the end, everyone wants to be a practitioner, because you can't have this information and not share it with others. It's just, you want to dunk every person in flower essences, because every person is struggling and in some sort of toleration and some sort of denial and some sort of exile of their pain. And yeah, you're going to want to help everyone. So you can be a total beginner. And we've also had therapists come in the program, and even women who have been trained by other flower essence trainings who have come in this program because they want to learn this specific healing system that I teach. So it's offered once a year. It is by application, and part of that is because I do like to go deep, I like to just meet you, right? It's just like, it's not really like a interview. It's more just, I want to connect with each woman who joins, because yeah, it's just important to me. There's 30 spots, and you will have one of our amazing mentors assigned to you who you'll be doing your one-on-one sessions with. And yeah, it's a miraculous experience. So Shona, there you are. Hi. Well, thanks for being here. So
No
impromptu
problem.
that you're here. I'm going to put you on the spot.
No problem. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was at my desk at work, and so I wanted to give you guys my full attention, so I just popped into a private room. Yeah, what can I say about this program? It is, well, first of all, I've done several programs with Ameya, and they've all been amazing, and this is absolutely one of my favorites. It is a perfect combination of like heady, science-based, intellectual, knowledge-based stuff, and then the total woo-woo, life-changing for me. I got to deepen with a circle of women. I got to go into my own shadow, come through it, not once or twice, but many, many times, and currently still going through it right now. And whenever anything comes up, I always turn to the flowers. It's like, oh no, something's happening. What do I do? Whether it's, anxiety or depression or some sort of trauma or old patterning, it's always like, which flowers? And there's an amazing community of women that I can turn to. And of course, Ameya, her teachings are so beautiful. And so if you're here, you're curious, you're here for a reason. And this may not be your chance, but at some point you're gonna be in this group. So highly, highly, highly recommend it.
Thank you, Shona. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Yeah, Shona couldn't come to the retreat. You've actually never been to the retreat, right? No. So, and look, she's gotten an extraordinary amount out of this program. So, yeah, it's always nice to hear from real women who have been through it. So I'm sure if you have any other questions, you can reach out to Shona. And maybe put your IG on there, Shona. And I just see, Erin, you're saying, I'm not sure what the universe is telling me with mine disappearing. I'll redo it. So I was just having this whole conversation with a friend of mine about this, how we think about all these things like, oh, what does it mean? And one of my spiritual teachers is Ameya, who's the hugging saint. Some of you may know her. And one of the things that she says, which is just so amazing, is she tells this story about this man who's on his way to a job interview and he gets a flat tire. And he goes into this whole thing about like what it means and, you know, maybe it's not the job for him and maybe it's not the time. And, you know, he's just going through this whole thing and she's telling the story because she's talking to him, right? He's coming to her saying all this. And she says, you know, sometimes you just get a flat tire, right? Like sometimes the application just gets lost, right? It doesn't have to have a significance about what it means. And I was just sharing with a friend of mine who was going into this whole thing about what something meant. And, you know, sometimes there is symbology for sure. And sometimes it's just technology is whacked, right? I tried to yeah.
Ameya, I want to remind you that when I signed up, my application got lost too.
Oh.
And I had to reach out to you and you're like, I never got it. So yeah, the universe works in a mysterious way, but
yeah,
it all works out in the end.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't remember that, Shona.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I lost 2 IG lives the other day, so they were just gone. So Jana says a total life-changing experience. The amount of growth is life-changing last year. So Jana just took the program last year, and I mean, yeah, witnessing what happened for her was amazing, and is still. And she's starting her business and rocking it. So, yeah. So anyway, tomorrow we'll meet live. If you have any other questions, you can always reach out to me. There's a lot to share, a lot to explore. I just want to say, like, you know, as I said at the beginning of the call, I do trust divine timing. So if it's this year to join us or another year. And with all of that said, I really honor that all of you are being called in some way. And it's just the common words that I've heard for almost 6 years. This is going to be our 6th year. And it takes a tremendous amount of courage and trust to have a calling and to follow it. Not to just have the calling and listen, but to actually follow it. And so if you do apply for this program and if you do take this training, I thank you so much for entrusting me as your guide. And I will do everything that I can to teach you, you know, what I know to be true about this extraordinary modality. So the website to read more it's just floweressencepractitionerprogram.com. I made it really easy for you. And all the details are on there. And then you can apply. So if you apply and you don't hear from me, then reach out. And we'll be scheduling a lot of one-on-one sessions and calls for next week. So any other final shares? Clapping for Solstice. Yay, Solstice. Our little baby Pendragon here. Okay, so one last thing. In the beginning of this call, I had you visualize, I asked like what flower or tree came forward for you. And so my invitation for you is to just work with that plant a little bit, whatever that means to you. Maybe it's something you already have in your garden. Go out and just sit and be with that plant. Maybe you don't have it near you and just bring it into your visualization. If you're on the fence about whether you want to join us, ask that plant. If you're wanting support about your health, ask that plant. Like that plant that revealed itself to you is guiding you in some way. So let's honor why it came forth and continue to speak and communicate with it. Ponderosa pine. Ooh, that plant's probably in your neighborhood, right? Yeah. Beautiful. Erin, does the plant have to be flowered to have the power? So traditionally, you essence flowering plants, but I don't always do everything traditional. So I really trust that if a plant's calling you, then that's the most important thing, right? So I make tree essences when they're not flowering, and I just trust, like there's a red pine that's been staring at me for 3 days and it's not flowering, and I have to go collect its essence tomorrow. So I trust the communication that you receive from Gaia is way smarter than anything that I could ever pass on to you. Thank you. Okay, yay! So go and be with your plant, visualize it. Thank you all so much for being here. I look forward to journeying with you in the practitioner program. And come tomorrow, we'll be diving in again. So we'll get to hang out more, and just sending you, oh, hold on. My blue spruce in my front yard has been asking me to create an essence, but I'm worried about cars driving by and their exhaust. Yeah, so that is an important detail because it is medicine. And so, you know, trees do tend to have really good mechanisms for transforming that. Perhaps the tree's calling you to collect an essence, or perhaps the tree's calling you to just talk. So sit and be with that tree and ask. Really, I mean, I'm always conscious about the environments that I'm collecting. And again, I trust what Gaia is telling me. So no apologies, Britt. I'm glad that you got that in. So I don't know what I was saying, but anyway, thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to coming together tomorrow and sending you all lots and lots of love. And thanks for staying longer, and thanks for all of your interest and your questions. And I really hope that it was helpful to you. Okay, so much love. Mwah. Blessed be. Thank you to Gaia and to the plants and the trees. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Blessed be.